Hello everyone, and deeply sorry for the delay. I had some problems with my mic, and I think I see my camera is not quite right. My head is being cut off, but if you can all tell me if the sound is okay for you now. Can you actually hear me speak, or are there any problems with the sound? So I'm topless, yeah. Sound is okay. That's great too. Nice. Okay, so let's get into today's stream. As I wrote in, so Bill mentions a heavy echo. Do anybody else have echo problems? Or is it just local? You don't have two windows open, Bill, do you? Nobody else seems to have gotten echoes, so then it's not on my side anyway. Nothing I can do, unfortunately, but check if you maybe have started the stream twice or something like that. I've done that in the past sometimes, and it's in a tab behind somewhere, and suddenly I have the video from two different sources. Well, anyway, sound seems to be fine. So in the announcement for today's video, I kind of wrote that I needed a setup, a battle map for a big battle, and I needed it to be a little bit in a cave with some lavas, things like that. It's actually going to take place within a volcano, and of course we're talking fantasy territory here. This is not probably not going to be realistic with the way the lava flows and everything, but I need to just have a nice battle map for my players when they get this far. But this is quite a big project, so I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get done here today. I'm very confident I'm not going to get done here today. So this session is more about taking you through a little bit how I plan when I work with a map, how I get started, how I get into things, and get a little bit started. But I will probably not be producing any nice finished map when I'm done. I also can't really hide that I'm not as quick as mapper as Ralph is when it comes to making a finished nice map, so I work a little bit more slowly than he do. But this is kind of a little bit of an exploration, how I use the tools, how I test out things, and hopefully the idea here is that you learn a little bit about how I work with things and maybe can incorporate in your own workflows. Not just being here for seeing a nice finished map. So if I ask who is as quick as Ralph's mapping, well, not me in any case, sadly. I wish I was. But as probably most of you already know, I'm much better at the technical stuff behind CC3 than quick mapping. I know a lot of things, but it takes a little bit of time to get it through. So, as usual, we are just going to start campaign cartographer. And of course, if there are any new ones watching this video, I'm Remy Monsen. I'm just taking over for Ralph for a week, or he's out on his holiday, out walking, I believe. So in the meantime, he left me here. So let's see if that was smart of him or not. So let's get started then. I'm going to make a battle map. That's a dungeon map, of course. So let me start file new, and let me make a dungeon map. Decide settings myself, and I think I'm going to start with the symbol set 2 style. It's kind of a favorite of mine, and it works well with a lot of other artwork. For example, Sue's artwork goes very well with symbol set 2. So I like to just do the bitmap A style as basic. But already here we get to the first difficult question when it comes to the map size, or comes to the map. How large should this map be? Now, I did pick imperial units, so this is in feet, and that's logical for me right now because my game is based on the AD&D 2nd edition rules, which is just exclusive imperial. I think there was produced a German version that's metric at one point, but I'm not that good at German. So I'm sticking to the English version, and I don't like to convert anything. Even if I don't live in Imperial land myself, I'm going to do it in Imperial, as I often do with my maps. But it comes down to how large should this map be? And that's one of the first considerations often when I drop into making battle maps. Often when we make battle maps, we are planning, well, we want to print them often, and often we are thinking about one sheet of paper, which is 297 millimeter by 210 millimeters. So you get about, I think, 10 by 8 squares or something on it. And that works for a small battle map. But this is going to be a big battle map, a big battle for my players. And one of the monsters, or the main monster they will be facing here, will be a dragon. Okay, dragons, those are exciting. Everybody loves dragons, especially everybody loves the sound of dragons chewing down on some players. Or some characters, rightly. I don't really want a dragon to eat my players, I want them to eat my characters. But once we involve a dragon, there's some size. A dragon is pretty large. So I should probably plan the size of my battle map based on what is the size and how much space for this dragon. They will be facing the dragon on the ground. There won't be any flying right now. It will be inside in a cave, and this particular dragon has actually been summoned by a ritual. So it will be inside a cave. I have to consider that the cave needs to be large enough to fit and fight the dragon, but right now I don't need to be too concerned about having dragon-sized exits and things like that. It's fine without, even if it might be slightly illogical. I'm not actually going to focus too much on the exits anyway. I want just the battle plan. So let's get into that. How large is a dragon? And, well, there lies the problem. Normally we know a character usually occupies 1 5-foot square. So let me bring up the monstrous manual entry on the red dragon. Okay, how large is this guy? Dragons can get pretty large, and the players will be facing one of the oldest dragons there is, which also means one of the largest dragons there is. So we have our dragon, and let's scroll down to the table. The oldest dragon in the book. Oops. So how large is this guy? He is actually about 180 foot long. that actually means that just the body of this dragon is almost 36 squares. So now let's get back to that little A4 sheet of paper sized map by something like 8 to 10 squares. I want 40 of those. That's actually going to be multiple papers just for the dragon himself. Now, I'm not going to print this. I'm just mentioning print because it's often used as a reference to sizes. I'm gonna use a virtual tabletop. In my games, I have a virtual tabletop system connected to a projector. So I project the maps on a screen in my living room where we play. So I don't really need to think about paper sizes, obviously. But this is going to be much larger. But let's look a little bit more about this dragon before we start. And as I also mentioned in the video description, this was also going to be a little bit about virtual tabletops. So I'm gonna start my application of choice, Map Tool. There are different applications out there and people use what they prefer, but for me it's Map Tool, so it's the one I'm going to be demonstrating in. So let's just place a dragon and a character. Actually, let's just drop a couple of characters. These are the characters of my actual game. Now, do anything strike you about that dragon? Well, to me, that looks like a very little baby dragon. Now, I'm using circular tokens for the player, so they might be slightly larger than a person would be, but still, it makes the dragon tiny. But this is the software I'm gonna run the fight in. So, and this is kind of why I brought you in here right now, because I need to see what can I actually do in the software. It doesn't really make sense for me to make a battle map that is so large, but if I cannot make a sufficiently large dragon in here. So let's look a little bit about what I can do. I can go to the dragon and I can set the size to colossal. This is the largest size Dungeons and Dragons allows for, colossal. And that's by default. If you can count the squares, it's 6 by 6 squares. You can actually turn on the grid as well. So it's a 6 by 6 squares, but I can do a little bit better than that because this is still a baby dragon. It's way, 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 way too small. So let me edit this token. Go to config and just zoom in on the layout there. Now, this is more or less the biggest I'm able to make it in the software. But now it starts to look like something, right? These characters looks a little bit tiny compared to them. So I think we're getting somewhere. I think I can live with this. This dragon is not 180 foot long, but that's kind of acceptable, I think, because if I run the dragon at the actual real size, it would be problematic. Let me show you another image just to drive that point home. This is a dragon comparison sheet. This big guy here That's a big silver dragon. And the guy down here is an elf. That's a human-sized being. We can see that if I'm going to run this exactly as detailed, well, it might be a little bit small with this tiny. So I think I'm quite okay with actually making the dragon a little bit smaller, because for two reasons. Because it makes a little bit better on the battle map, and it is within what the software here can actually handle. And it will also be bad if I had to scroll out something like this, because the dragon was filling the screen and the players were tiny. So I think this is quite fine. So how large is this dragon now? Well, let me measure. I'm gonna use these dashed outlines and measure it. So it's 90 by 90 foot. So let's just call it an even 100. So that's the starting point for my map. It's actually, I need an even 100 just to fit the dragon. Of course, he do need a little bit of space to move as well, I think. But I don't think this enemy is going to get too much movement. It's more about the power of the enemy. This is not the exact dragon they will be facing anyway, but I'm using this for reference. So let's call it an even 100 for the dragon. So that tells me something about the map size, doesn't it? If the map itself, or if the dragon itself is supposed to be 100 feet long, and I'm just defining him as a square right now, 100 by 100, well, the recommended sizes for this map type is up to 500 foot. So I think we actually need to go to the maximum size. 500 by 500. Simply because we will have the dragon in the middle, and the players should need to move a little bit around him. There will also be some cultists and things here as well at the same time. So this opens up for quite a large battle map, and with 500 they do have a little bit of space. It's going to be a pretty large cave. It's kind of a fantasy sized cave, but I'm fine with that for this map. So let me go for 500 by 500. Now, what should be the map background? I actually like this dark dirt. Sue says rooms for 25 dragons. Well, technically, since it's 5 by 5 times the dragon, but that would get a little bit cramped, I think, and horrifying for the players. But once you square things, actually the numbers rise pretty quickly. Sardines, yeah, I just imagine open a box, a box of a dragons, sardine box crammed with dragons. Yes, okay, so I like this dirt, but there are some issues with it. Let's make the map and just look at it. And I'm not going to put it in there. Let's call it Dragon Lava Cave. 40 kobolds in a broom closet, yeah. And of course, that's a 10 by 10 foot broom closet. Because everybody knows the dungeon rooms are 10 by 10 foot. Or 10 by 10 feet. Now, let me scroll in. I hope the quality is fine on YouTube as well, depending on your quality settings, I guess. But I kind of like this. It's called dirt, but it works fine for inside of a cave. I'm always imagining that a cave isn't usually just clean stone, most of it anyway. So I like it, but there are a couple of problems. The first problem is that, okay, this battle map is going to be viewed from a bit of afar. I cannot zoom in all the way and just admire the beautiful artwork. It's fine if I can do that, but if the dragon is that big, it means that we need to do the combat a little bit zoomed out. And you can see a couple of problems there. One of them is that it's tiling a lot. We need to fix that. I'm not too happy about that. And it looks very noisy at this zoom level. I might not be looking exactly at that zoom level, but I might be looking at something like this, and it's still very noisy. So before we go further on, I need to reserve some room for my dragon. How much space would my dragon actually need? So I'm just going to create a sheet for him. Hang on. And put it there. And we can add a little bit of transparency on that sheet as well. So a dragon sheet with a dragon layer. The reason I'm making a layer when I do things like this is that a layer can be frozen, and thus I can ensure that I do not accidentally select things on that layer while I'm working. It can be visible but unselectable. So layers are great. And actually making it an active layer too. So we agreed, or I forced the idea on you, really, but that we should have a 100 by 100 foot dragon. So I'm just going to pick some random fill here. Just put him on some marble tiles for now. This is just a placeholder. There wouldn't be any actually tiles inside of here. But this is also, when you're working with a map like this, kind of the technique. Sometimes you use placeholders just to identify areas, marking up things. So I'm gonna draw just a 100 by 100 square. And I'm gonna use the box tool. So that's fine. Now I could start clicking in the map, and finding 100 by 100 size would be extremely difficult. But I can do this with a little bit of math. We know that this one is 500 by 500, right? So the center point should be 250 by 250. That's easy, just divide by 2. And I want to center a square on that, which is 100 by 100. So that means that it has to go from 200.200 to 300, 300. So I can just type the coordinates. It starts at 200, 200, and it ends at 300, 300. And I think you know that the center point between 200, 200 and 300, 300 is obviously 250, 250. So there we go. So of this rather large map, that quite huge chunk in the middle is only going to have one singular purpose, and that is to hold the dragon himself. So this is going to be where the dragon appears when the players are going to fight the dragon. Okay, fine. Let's just put in some kind of dragon here just to make it visible. I don't have a good dragon at the ready, but I know that in Dungeons, in Muxley, one of these monthlies, let's see, should have dragons. I don't remember exactly which one. Should be one around here. There we go. Here's the dragons. These are sleeping dragons, but I'm just using them as placeholders anyway. So it's not really that important for now. This is not going to survive and be in the map in the end. Because why would it? I need to add the dragon in my map making or my virtual tabletop. I'm gonna move him around. If I put the dragon on the actual map here, he wouldn't really be accessible to me. So I'm just gonna grab a sleeping dragon. I'm just gonna scale him by I, and yeah, there we have a perfect dragon. Okay, put him down. He's probably not on the right sheet nor layer, so I'm just gonna change properties on him and put it on the dragon sheet and the dragon layer. So now we have the dragon, and I can probably just erase the marker here. We have the dragon. So we can see this map is actually huge. It's 500 by 500 feet. For a battle map, that's enormous. That's huge. But I kind of need that kind of room because, well, as I said, I want to put some cultists in here. The dragon needs to have a little space to move around. There's some fighting, and this opens up for the players to be able to use different kind of tactics, divide a little bit up, run a little bit around. I can try to isolate them, getting separate fights, going in separate corners of the room while I'm trying to take down important cultists, all things like that. So I need some room for this dragon of mine. So we are going to look into, okay, so with him in here, the first thing I want to do a little bit, as I mentioned, this is inside a volcano. So I need to add some lava and things like that. So as Sue mentions, she has trouble making maps that big look good. Yes, it's very difficult making maps this big looking good, because you have to consider in what scale should it look good. Because as I zoom out now, if I zoom really far in here, it actually looks quite good already. Pretty empty, of course, but the dragon and the scale of the fill looks nice. But when I zoom out, we see the tiling of the textures. Symbols are going to get really small. They're going to disappear. So we really need to plan and think. And this is why I brought up this map today. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'm not going to get a beautiful finished map by the end. No chance of that. This is more just a basic beginning, but seeing a little bit how we can handle and do things. So it's quite boring right now. It's a dragon in the middle of a big plain. So let's try to do something about him. I'm thinking I want to make a couple of different levels, terrace levels. so that we can have the fight going on. We get a little bit of height difference. I can put the cultist a little bit up high, the dragon more like down in the center. But the dragon has breed weapon with quite some reach. For example, if we go back here and check the distance of the breath weapon of this red dragon. Let's see, I don't remember exactly. Yeah, he can breathe a cone of fire that is 90 foot long. That means that from down here, he has quite a large attack area with things like his breath weapon. He will have spells, and of course the cultist. So it's, and of course he is a big movable dragon. The players cannot just stand on the top of some cliff and think they can shoot them at him from a distance without him actually getting up in their faces and chow down on them, basically. But I need some space down here, and I want some hindrances, things like lava, for example. We all love lava, don't we? So I'm actually just going to start right there. Start with the area around the dragon, see a little bit. Okay, what can we do here? First of all, I did mention that the dragon was supposed to be conjured. He's not actually living here. It's not his lair or anything. So I need some kind of magic circle, basically, where the dragon is now. But we can leave that for later. We can have the dragon here, but just keep that in mind, which means that even if this dragon is fireproof, I want to avoid putting a lava pool straight through the dragon or something like that, because that would cause problems for my summoning circle, which would be maybe a pentagram or something like that. I think we have some nice one. Sue, didn't you make some in Creepy Crypts or something? I don't always remember where all of these are. Yeah, here we have some nice little magic circles. So I want something like this one. It's a varicolor symbol. Exactly what is the varicolor? Ah, on the clouds, yes. So yeah, probably something like this. And it shouldn't be on top of the dragon, but as I said, I remove the actual dragon anyway. But we can probably just move him down so he can be laying on the symbol. But I'm not wanting to disturb this symbol. Or maybe I can just put something slightly in the middle. Let me just hide the dragon sheet for a little moment. Yeah, I can maybe have a little lava pool in the middle there. I want to get a few lava pools around here just to make it more difficult for the players, making a few hindrances basically. And lava pools like that, you can basically make them contain gases that make them basically burp a little bit of lava every now and then, throwing lava around. Always fun getting hit by flying lava. So we have lava already in the tools. And I'm just going to do cave lava, I think. And I'm gonna turn off snap. Maybe I should just make a small lava pool inside of here. And more elongated stretch of lava. I'm getting real close to this circle. Now, let's start looking at the effects. One of the things I almost always do when I work with maps is to tweak the effects. Right now, I don't like how this looks at all, because I'm kind of imagining more a scenario where lava isn't just floating on the floor, but there are actually cracks in the floor and lava just beneath it. So how can we achieve that? Let me first check which sheet this is on. It's on the floors sheet. Okay, fine. I don't think I'm going to put anything else on the floor sheet, so I think it's fine to have the lava there. Or maybe we could actually move it, because we have a perfect sheet for the lava, which I'm not using for anything else, namely the water sheet. Perfect. And let's go looking at the effects. Okay, the water. This has an edge fade in there, and yeah, it gives a faded look, but it's absolutely not what I want. So let me just remove this one. So yeah, as Susie says in the chat, she spent ages and ages tweaking the effects. They are very important. Yes, they are. And I also, when I make maps, looking at the effects, tweaking the effects, that's often what makes an average map a good map, or a good map a great map. So let's just remove the edge fade, and instead I'm going to throw on an inside glow on this one. Map units, and let's just move these out of the way so I can use apply. It should not be 50 units, more like 2 units maybe. Maybe 4. Should we try a bit stronger? No, I actually like the 12.5 setting. There we go. At least to my eyes, now this looks like an edge with a slight drop, and you can see the lava in a pool right below it. I'm not imagining that the lava far below it. I'm thinking the lava is kind of near the top, but just a few inches down from the floor, basically. That makes it very, very dangerous. Imagine that somebody get pushed into that lava, or just the lava burping a little bit, throwing lava everywhere. People standing near the lava will always be at risk. That dragon, immune to fire as it is, might even take one of his huge paws and just lap into the lava and just squashing it onto the players. That's quite nice. So yeah, so let me do one more of these, at least, or maybe 2. Just making maybe some small pools. And they are probably, since I'm using drawing tools, they go to the default sheet for the tools. So I actually need to move them. So this is a start. Maybe I'm going to move these, maybe not, but at least it gives me a little bit thinking room for the rest of the map. Okay. Now, as I said, I think I want to try to make a little bit of a height difference here. And I think maybe I should use some kind of rock, because this gets very noisy. It's also a problem when I zoom too far out, that it starts to look maybe a little bit dark. I like the dark colors, but dark colors often work worse in patterns when you zoom the map out, and I'm going to zoom it out a little bit. So I think I'm going to find some stone. Now, I'm not perfectly happy with the stone offerings in Symbol Set 2 for this purpose. I mean, I love the cliffs. They are really nice, but they also are very noisy and do not fit my purpose here. And we have this cave, which is, it's not bad, but it do not suit the huge scale here very well. We get the same repeating, and it gets problematic if I blow them up too much. So I think I need to find something. I need to find some other fills. So I'm just gonna save this map, and I am going to just find the fills directory. The easiest way of doing that is to just type open doc, followed by a space and the @ character, and we get an Explorer window focused on the Camping Cartographer 3+ data directory. And then in bitmaps, tiles, and dungeon. Shall we see what we can find? I'm gonna use Windows search functionality, and I'm gonna search for asterisk. That's a wildcard, which means that it can be replaced by anything. Stone asterisk underscore VH. Why do I type underscore vh.png? Well, I do that because that means I will only find the high resolution bitmaps. Not because I only need to have the best resolution, because Camping Cartographer will use the different resolutions automatically, but this saves me from actually getting 4 different copies of every search result. I only get the high resolution one. So this is the stones from the dungeons. Now I want something that are rather plain and fitting. So we can look at a couple of these. We have the stone grey flat. It's not too bad. This natural stone is nice, but could be a bit too noisy as well. So I think I'm gonna try actually with this one. It's from Creepy Crypts. It's the mudstone. And let's just open it in the editor. And it's a little bit noisy, but it's not too noisy using the colors. It's using a lot of light colors all the way. So I think this won't be too noisy. We can try this one. We can replace it if we are not happy with it, as always. So how do I get this one into Camping Cartographer 3+? Well, there's a bunch of ways, of course, but I think I'm just going to import all the fills from this annual CA 186, which if I do a properties, I can see here in location where it's located. So it's in the Creepy Crypts folder. So let me just do tools, import bitmap fill styles. I'm gonna browse to bitmaps, tiles, dungeon, creepy crypts, and open. And when you import bitmaps from which are already processed for use in Compact Cartographer 3, you should not check the create other resolutions. That's only when you either make your own stuff or you find files on the internet which are not prepared for Compact Cartographer 3+. So I'm actually just gonna import this as it is. The sharp-eyed ones among you will notice I have forgotten something, of course, but we'll get to that. So I am now going to actually just define myself a step. And that will be a sheet. Let's call it step 1. And it should probably, yeah, that's a fine order for it. So it's a step 1, and I am going to pick the stone I took, the mudstone. There we go. Okay. And I'm just going to grab the smooth drawing tool, and think for this one, should I? Yeah, actually I want to just have a hole in the middle. And a hole in the middle is easiest to do using a color key effect. So I'm actually going to just draw this one over the entire map. Actually, I'm just going to use the F5 modifier to place it precisely in the corner. Actually, no, I'm not. Some people might understand why I redecided right now, but I'm going to draw it outside the map. Why did I want to draw it outside the map? Well, it's because I'm going to add an effect that applies to the edge of the element. And what happens if I do something at the edge of the element when it's right up against the map border? Well, it will still apply, and we will get weird effects up against the map border. So instead, I'm drawing it right outside the map border. And now, when we export this map, I see it's a little bit outside my my screen, sorry. Sometimes my mind stops working. I can actually just fix the screen. As you probably know, the screen is this white polygon around, which is intended to hide stuff that is going out beyond the map border. Let me just fix the screen. So I type color del to delete the existing one. Okay, was this not on the screen sheet? Oh, this is an older template which do not have a screen. Okay, let me just add one then. Screen. Okay, I'm gonna move this down to here. I'm going to manually erase the old polygon, and I'm gonna type color auto, and it automatically makes a new screen for me, nicely hiding these things. So that's how easy it was to add a screen to that. But now I wanted some room in the middle here. Okay, with color key, that means that we mark an area we wish to cut out. I'm going to do that, and we do that with color number 6. Normally you can change it, but that's the normal color we use. And I'm going to just use, actually I want to see the lava so I can see what I'm actually doing here. So I'm gonna move this down, nice, so I don't accidentally cut out too little. And I think I'm just going to use a smooth tool and cut out. So the area here will kind of be the bottom area of the fight where the dragon is. box where the players will fight him. And I did one mistake now. I set the color, but I forget to set the fill style. So I actually filled it with the Mudstone 1 bitmap. And anything using a bitmap fill will show that fill and not the color. I need to change the fill style to solid. Fortunately, I can just use change properties, hit P for prior, that selects the entity I just drew. It's very difficult to see that it was selected, but it was. We can see selected one entity, D for do it, and I'm just gonna set fill style to solid. So like that, we have now an ugly magenta bump in the map. What can I do with that? Well, I can now go in step 1. I can start by adding. First, I want to add a color key. There we go. You can see the default color is the magenta, but I can change it. And now, if I apply sheet effects, did I not draw everything now? Of course I didn't. You guys see which sheet my nice purple polygon is on? Of course, it's on the screen sheet because that was the active sheet at the time. Let me just move it to the right sheet. Step 1, it needs to be on the same sheet as the effect, as the entity you're cutting a hole in. And voila, there we are. We have a hole. Okay. Now, this step doesn't have any effects on it yet, so it looks pretty ugly. And you might notice one thing too. Look at the scale of this fill now, and look at basically the scale of the details. Can you see that the details are jumping around in the stone, but the scale is the same all the time? That's because this bitmap has not been scaled correctly yet. So we need to actually do that as well. When I go to the fill style, there's a scaled checkbox here, and we can set how it should be scaled. Let's just try by one. This is going to look horrible, but it's just gonna show you something. Now, can you see how small it is? But now it stops jumping around. You see that? I can zoom in and out. It's not jumping around anymore. But it's unusually small. So, Sue in the chat mentioned it should be able to cover to 30. Let's try 30 then. And let's go. So, this is 30. Okay. We still have, this map isn't done yet. We started a little late, but I see we are now approaching an hour, so I'm not going to do too much more to this map. So I'm just gonna stick to this one. We might, when we add more details to the map and things like that, we might want to change it a little bit, but let's make this look a bit more like an actual step. And can do that in a couple of ways. First of all, I like to add a lighted bevel to it. Now, this is another issue when working with maps this large. How large should my bevel size be? Map units are actually feet. Should my bevel really be 5 feet large? 5 feet, that's one entire square on the map, which can be occupied by a player. We have to think a little bit, not just how good it looks when it's zoomed all the way out, because if it looks perfectly good when zoomed all the way out, you can bet that every detail is way too large when you zoom in on the action. You don't really want that. So I think I'm gonna try with 2 units. It's still large, but not that large. And yeah, let's just do that. Actually, I think that's way too large. It should not be. When I'm really far out, it even starts disappearing, but that the bevel works this far out isn't really, because that's not where the combat is happening. So that's just some of the trade-offs you have to make when making maps of this scale. It is basically impossible to make it look perfectly fine zoomed out and zoomed in. So you have to make that choice. Which one is more important to you? This is a battle map, so this should probably look best zoomed in. But because I have a huge dragon, I'm not gonna zoom really close. So maybe I should optimize it for some kind of a middle range, really. Let's try adding 1 instead. Okay, that's a smaller bevel, but we can now see that it is nice and at least have some sort of an edge. But I usually, in addition to having a bevel, I usually like to give it a little bit of a dark glow for a dark shadow. It's a bit risky because that shadow may also make it look like it's floating above the ground. You have to tweak it a little and decide which looks best for you, what's the best option. But just close this a moment. I like to save my map, and let me just go and throw in a glow on this one. And that should be an outer glow, I think. 2 units with 1 unit blur. And again, what I'm doing now, the sizes are just pure experimentation. I need to see this before I know exactly if I'm happy with it. You see that? It looks very much like it's floating now. It's floating above the ground. That's not good. It's way too much. So maybe I should cut the range to 1, or maybe even 0.5. It's difficult finding the best here. Maybe I'm not gonna have a blur at all. Okay, plus size 0.2 maybe. So you can see I'm looking at things, playing a little bit around. I don't have a solution for everything. I need to visualize it a little bit. Okay, I'm going to just stop with it there, or maybe I should try one thing. This is an outer glow, but instead of an outer glow, we could try an inner glow instead. Let's see if this actually looks better. It might actually look a little bit better. You get a darkening on the edge, and then we can go for the outer glow and 0.2, 0.1. Usually I like to keep the blur size less than the range, because the blur is the area that is going to be basically edge faded, really. But so again, try to find a little bit. Yeah, actually turn it on. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna leave that there for now. I have at least my edge and a little bit of glow on it. So as Vivian also says, yes, experimentation is vital. So I'm just quickly going to add my step 2 here. Step 2. Step 2 should use the same effects as step 1. So I'm just gonna select them, I'm gonna copy them, I go to step 2, I'm gonna paste them, and okay. And just to make sure I have everything right, I'm gonna select. I just noticed I've been working on the wrong layer as well. These are on the dragon layer. That's not desirable at all. I want to have these at the background floor 1 probably. So I'm gonna change this one. Oops. Yeah, but this can actually go to, yeah, notice this one. This is something you sometimes can be difficult to comprehend when you have a color key. I was trying to select this stone. When I go selection rectangle, I only get one, and that's this one. And why? Well, simply because there is no edge for the stone here. The only edge is for the color key polygon. The edge for the stone is actually out here somewhere. So let's see if I can actually select it. Did I freeze it or something? No. Let's see. Always multiple ways of selecting things if you have trouble, but this can be easy, just for example hiding the screen so I can actually see what's going on. There we go, easy to select it. And I want it on the background floor 1 layer. Hiding things when you fail to select is usually the best option. So I'm gonna use the extract properties just to make sure I have everything the same. Yeah, and I'm repeating my same mistakes because I'm clicking on the edge. I can't not see that as an edge, but it isn't really. So let me just basically just leave the screen hidden for now. It doesn't have to be showing. There, and I'm gonna use the smooth polygon, but this time I'm just going to leave a little bit of stop. I was on step 1. I could have moved it afterwards, but I'm just gonna put it on step 2 from the get-go. And now I'm gonna just draw a couple of and this one I'm gonna do with a couple of edges, and you can probably see I did a little mistake there as well. Those of you familiar with smooth polygons know what the problem was. I just placed one node in the corner, but with smooth polygons, that means it's going to smooth it. So actually I'm just gonna add an extra corner, just using add node. And I'm gonna add an extra node up here. And I'm gonna do the same here, just add an extra node, and there we go. And I'm gonna do the same at the bottom. I'm gonna draw another smooth. Maybe make a little bit larger area here. Oops, didn't get the command correctly. It's a bit difficult. I didn't notice at once that I didn't have the command, because right now, because of the gray color, I cannot really see the preview line properly. So place 2 nodes in the corners. 2 nodes. And there we go. There we have level 2. I'm gonna continue adding several levels to this one, but considering the time, I'm not gonna do that now. And right now, as I look at it, this is woefully incomplete. I need to do a lot of this, and I might be moving the nodes around. Yeah, sorry, C also mentions press C for hard corner. I'm so used to just pressing, clicking twice, and pressing C actually just does that automatically for you. It makes 2 nodes and in the same spot, so no big difference. But yeah, I'm probably going to work a lot with this. I'm not at all happy with the shapes right now. This is very basic. It's just getting started. It's not really that good of an area, but what I have been getting here now is kind of the starting point. Now I can start to tweak things, tweak the area, look a little in, what do I need to do? I can start planning out the battle a little more, seeing what items I need to add, and things like that. But since we are getting a little bit long now, I'm not going to do that. So we were also going to talk a little bit about VTTs, and I have already talked about Virtual Tabletops a bit, shown you a little bit how, but I think I should finish off this stream by actually getting this map into my tabletop and look at a couple of the ways to do that correctly, and getting some monsters and things on it just to finish it up. But as I said, this map is extremely far from finished. It's not something I'm happy with right now. It needs a lot of work. But okay, the map is saved. Now I want to get it into the virtual tabletop, and I need to consider a couple of things. First of all, which resolution should it have? When I have it here in Camping Cartographer, this is a 500 by 500 foot. And because the way Camping Cartographer works, I can zoom pretty much almost infinitely far into here. There's a limit, of course, but I can get very high details, and that's because how Camping Cartographer uses the assets. But when I export it to a bitmap image to use in a tabletop, I have to export it to a static image. That means I'm not getting that infinite resolution or anything like that. So I have to export it in a resolution that is good enough for my users, but which do not overwhelm the virtual tabletop system. There are different limits for the different tabletops, especially if you're going to host it online. There are usually stricter limits. I'm using an in-house installation myself, and I'm not doing things over the internet, which means that I don't have that strict limits, and I also just have my own line and not a bunch of customers to optimize for. So I can usually do a little bit higher resolution, higher details myself, but there is a limit to what the software can handle. So this map was 500 by 500. Let's go to map tools and just do a new map. It suggests by default 100 pixels per cell. Okay, what is a cell? Well, it says distance per cell is 5, and this is 5 foot basically, 5 foot per cell, 5 foot squares. This is exactly what we have been working with all the time. So 5 foot squares, and it wants 100 pixels for each. Okay, so how many 5 foot squares are my map? Well, it's 500 feet, right? So that's 100 5 foot squares. So it's 100 times 100 squares. And if each square need to be 100 pixels, that's 10,000 by 10,000 pixels. Okay, that's a number we can work with. Now, 10,000 by 10,000, that's going to make a pretty large map. So sometimes you might think that, well, maybe we should just stick to 5,000 and just say, well, we accept 50 pixels per cell. For this map, which I'm zooming a little bit out, that might be fine. And especially for online use, you might really want to consider that. But now I'm going to export it. And just for fun, I'm gonna do the thing you should not do, just because I wanna demonstrate something. I'm gonna add a grid to this map in Camping Cartographer. When you use an external virtual tabletop, you should let that software handle the grid. You shouldn't handle the grid yourself, or sorry, in the image. So adding the grid is kind of bad, but it helps me demonstrate a point. Ouch, and I accidentally made the grid red. My favorite grid color, but we can just change it. I want to make it now. It's difficult finding the best grid color because I have dark areas here and light areas here. Maybe I should just go for the plain white grid. As you can see, there is a lot of grid squares here. The map looks pretty ugly with that grid. Not so much when you zoom in, because then the grid looks normal, but when you're zoomed out, it looks pretty bad. But again, that's one of the issues. So, with these large maps, let me save it. Save as. And now comes the important part when you work with virtual tabletops, because we need the dimensions of the map to be exact. And the problem, if I just do, I'm gonna do just a very quick export first of a like my JPEG, and I'm gonna make it very quick because let's look at this map. What happens now? So you can launch the image viewer. Fine. And let's save it. Okay. So that was a quick. Okay. Yeah. Can't actually see it this much on this map, but there are a couple of things, because usually maps have nice map borders, and you can see the map border is just a single line here, and we got a white line outside of that area. Sometimes when you save, you get a much larger white area, because it depends a little bit about where the map border is defined. This was not a bad example. This would basically almost have worked, but exporting it like that is a bit risky. We can do it in slightly different way just to see. You might see that I had this option checked, restrict to map border, and often that will work just fine, but sometimes to make it easier to use drawing tools, some templates are designed with the map border a little bit outside the actual map, visible map area. It's good for drawing tools because you avoid weird edge effects on the edge when you turn on effects, but it's very bad for precise exports. And the result is usually typically what I'm going to show you now. I just deliberately turned off the option right now, but you get things like that, a huge white area. It doesn't have to be this large, often it is much smaller, but the problem is once you get this area, the problem is that the map isn't precise. Imagine that I exported this at 10,000. Okay, but what did I want to be 10,000 pixels? I wanted this area to be 10,000 pixels. But for Campaign Cartographer, it sees that's the size of the image. So now I have this entire line here being 10,000. That means that everything is a bit smaller. Every grid square is a little bit smaller. It's no longer the 100 pixels my tabletop wanted. Maybe it's 95 pixels or something like that. And it simply won't fit. And we want it to fit perfectly. Not because I want to export it with the grid on, like I'm doing here. I'm just using that for example. But I want the grid in the virtual tabletop to match up to exactly where the Campaign Cartographer grid would have been if I had it on, because the map is designed around the grid. So how do we do that? Well, if I go to File, Save As, and instead of picking just the bitmap file option, I pick the rectangular section option. When I do a rectangular section, I get to pick the exact export point myself. I don't leave it to Campaign Cartographer. So let's do that 10,000 export. This doesn't matter right now. Can be on or off. But now I'm gonna save it. Yes. And now Campaign Cartographer is asking me to pick the corners. I want to have precise positioning, so I'm using the endpoint modifier. You can also find it, tools, snaps, endpoint. You can see the shortcut key here, F5. That's my favorite way of doing it. So I just hit F5 and I just try to aim roughly up here in the corner. And Campaign Cartographer will place it perfectly on the corner. I do the same down here. And it starts exporting. Other ways of doing the same thing. Oh, Sue mentioned it was difficult to see the save as type behind my head. So yeah, I hope you got it. The rectangular export options instead of the usual. I can bring up the boxes in a moment. But anyway, another way of doing that instead of using the snaps is that you could have, or the modifiers, you could have turned on snaps. And if the grid snaps are configured correctly, it would snap to the exact points. So let's just get done with the export. This is a 10,000 by 10,000 export. That's a pretty large export. So it also takes quite a long time to get done. We are working on the third pass right now. But exporting maps this large quickly takes a couple of minutes. And I can now see I'm annoying myself because I have step 1 without a space and step 2 with a space. I hate that, but it's easy to rename sheets, so no biggie. We can fix that. Okay, final conversion step. This also takes a little bit of time with these huge maps. There we go, we are done. And I have a 10,000 by 10,000 export. And if I zoom in, we should be more or less perfect. There might be sometimes a single pixel that has just, by the way, Campaign Cartographer renders things when he needs to convert it to an image. You can see we have a tiny 1 pixel. That's kind of expected, but 1 pixel is not really a problem. So that original export I tried first actually worked better than I thought. So we could most probably have used that, but I just wanted to show you what can happen. So I promise you I will bring back up the save as and the options because there was save type here. I was hiding them. So basically what I was saying was now you should pick the rectangular section option instead of the regular option. The rectangular asks you to specify the corners. Okay, so I'm just gonna cancel out of this one, going back to map tools, and then I'm gonna pick my map, file system, and it is in here, Dragon Lava Cave, open. Okay, so I did export it at 10,000 pixels, so it should correctly be 100 pixels per cell. But this will affect how the grid is made in map tools, so this needs to be correct based on the export size. So I'm gonna hit OK. And as you can see now, that extra pixel, which I did comment on, has skewed everything just a tiny bit of a pixel. It can be an issue, but normally it isn't, because you are not normally showing the Campaign Cartographer grid anyway. So that 1 pixel off really wouldn't, because that 1 pixel is the same basically all the way over. it's going to adjust slightly move from one side of this line to the other, but that's over 100 squares. And when you're not having the grid as you normally would, you wouldn't notice the difference at all. Unfortunately, if you need to get rid of that 1 pixel, you need to do that in an image editor afterwards. But normally, as I said, that's not a matter of concern. You won't even notice that one in your VTT application. But if you did it the bad way and got that huge white border, which I did show in the example export, you would definitely feel it, and it would be a problem when you started moving miniatures. So now I have the map now, and just ignore the fact that the grid looks a bit ugly because I have the dual grids. I can actually now turn off this grid. And also, if you notice the grid popping in and out, that's because when you're zooming an application like that, that grid on an image is 1 pixel wide. But when you zoom out, you don't have enough pixels on your screen to show all those grids. So the computer kind of have to decide which ones to show and which one not to show. So this is also why you shouldn't use the Campaign Cartographer grid. If I exported it out and just used the grid inside of Map Tool, which draws it after it doesn't need to resize it with the map, it looks much better. Also, you don't get this ugly grids popping out in it. But that's always a result of exporting images. So now I can just drop in my dragon. Okay, and do the same thing I did earlier when we discussed it. Zoom in, making the dragon. There we go. Now we have a nice dragon, and I can throw in my players. Let's hide them up here behind the lava pool. So, players ready to fight the dragon. So there we go. I did take a little bit more time than planned, and sorry for the delay in the beginning with the microphone. I have no idea what happened there. But as I said, I have shown you some techniques, some thinking about huge maps like this, a little bit about what to do, how to handle them, especially the fact that when you are dealing with a huge map like that, you kind of have to decide, should it look good when zoomed in or zoomed out? It's very difficult to get both at the same time. And noisy areas like this, you really have to consider, should you have a noisy area that noisy? Maybe that non-noisy stone here is much better. You have to work a little bit, and the only way to do this is to test and try and see. It's not something you can just set out and, yeah, I know exactly what I'm going to do. If you do it, then you're a much better mapper than I am. A lot of people are a better mapper than I am, obviously. I'm good at the technical stuff, and okay-ish at the mapping stuff, but you need to experiment, and that was kind of a little bit what I wanted to show here. And as I said earlier, I'm not happy with this map yet. It's very, very far from completion. This is not a complete map in any way, shape or form, but it's already giving me ideas how I can start to reshape it. I think this area here in the middle looks a bit too squarish. I want to make it a little bit more fluid and dynamic, working a little bit with it, but I've been setting up the effects and I'm getting the ball rolling for creating this map. But yes, this map will take me a lot of hours until it's actually properly done. So we have to see exactly how much time, and that's also something with battle maps. You often see beautiful maps in the forum and things like that, and I love seeing them. And when I have the time, I try to make very good maps myself, but often game is looming right over the horizon, and you have to get something functional as priority 1 and all the prettiness as priority 2, obviously. But as I said, this map, it needs a lot in trying to design work, change the shapes a bit. It needs a lot of symbols, decorations, getting it to look a lot better. But I think that's all for today. We have now seen a little bit how to export properly for a battle map, how to think about making a large battle map. I hope this was useful. And I guess, unless there are any questions before I end this stream, I give you a minute or so to type in any questions if you have anything. But if not, it's Rolf will be back next week. And maybe when I get done with this map, I will let you see where I'm going with it. So thank you all. Doesn't seem to be any questions, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in a later video or in the forum or something else. So have a nice day, everyone.